If you're a Democrat living in a conservative area, particularly if you are a white Democrat living in a conservative area, I'm about to tell you something that you are almost certainly going to absolutely hate. You need to join your town's Facebook group, and importantly, you need to interact kindly with the people in that group. Now, before you lose your mind on me in the comments, I need you to hear me out. I am aware of just how miserable those groups are and just how miserable of a task I am asking you to take on. But I also have a very specific reason that I am doing so. It will come as no surprise to anyone watching this that the Facebook groups centered around conservative small towns have largely devolved into a complete viper's nest of some of the most hateful shit you will ever see said about another person online, mixed into a toxic jambalaya with the worst, most batshit conspiracy theories ever created. If you've spent much time in one of these groups, you'll know how frequently these groups are hijacked by a town's most paranoid, bigoted, and frankly lonely old white men who have replaced the feeling of actual human connection with the dopamine rush that they get from arguing with complete strangers online. Now don't worry, I am not telling you that you need to join these groups specifically to become best friends with those men. In fact, we aren't going to think or worry about those men at all. You are not going to waste your time trying to change their opinions because that would be a fool's game. The type of old white man who spends 12 hours a day posting memes about Nancy Pelosi's husband or blurry screenshots of fake websites accusing every Democrat alive of nefarious shit are too far down the rabbit hole to be saved. You will never change these dudes' minds, and every second that you waste attempting to do so is another second that you aren't spending inoculating other people in the group against their bullshit. But for every one of those dudes in your town's Facebook group, I guarantee there are 10 other people who, despite being conservative, despite likely consuming a lot of Fox News, and even despite considering themselves MAGA and a Trump supporter, are still reachable. And I mean a very specific thing when I say reachable. I do not mean that you're going to convince them to love Hillary Clinton or believe everything that AOC says, or even ever convince them to vote for a single Democrat in their life. But you could protect them from being indoctrinated into believing that your local librarian is an actual demon. You could be the friendly conversation that helps them see that your local teachers do actually care about the education of children in your town and aren't, in fact, secretly trying to trans the kids or whatever. Because let's be honest, we have reached the point as a country where we are now in harm reduction mode. And that is doubly true for those of us living in red states. Republican lawmakers in deep red areas have made it very clear through their actions, or more specifically, their lack of action, that they have no interest in helping prevent their party slide further and further into extremism. Their biggest concern come re-election time is being primaried by someone even further to the right of them. That's why none of them have shown the moral fortitude or the courage necessary to push back on even a single bit of Elon Musk's bullshit. And come midterms, it is very likely that any Republican primaries happening in deep red states are going to be a race to the bottom, as candidates frantically try to prove that they are the most MAGA that has ever MAGA'd. So your goal by joining your town's Facebook group is not to convince any conservative in your town to vote for a Democrat in the midterms. Your goal is to prepare them to not fall for the bloviating of far-right extremists who are courting their vote next year. Because a lot of the time, all it takes to help start a person's journey toward empathy and understanding is showing them the humanity of the people that they are talking about. A few years ago, they did studies showing that voters who held deeply homophobic and transphobic views could have those views changed through a single deep conversation about shared values at their doorstep with a canvasser who was themselves queer or transgender. Nothing breeds hatred faster than ignorance, but you can be their tour guide on their journey out of ignorance.